Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. This time out, a versatile hybrid audio interface from MOTU. Let's get started. Today we're checking out the 624, a new hybrid audio interface from MOTU. It supports 16 simultaneous channels of input, 16 simultaneous channels of output, and up to 64 channels of expansion via network connections. The 624 can connect to either Mac or PC, as well as iOS devices. It has Thunderbolt connectivity, USB 3.0, and AVB network connectivity as well. That AVB networking is what allows you to use this as part of a larger system with, again, up to 64 more inputs and outputs. You can control the 624 using the front panel. All the settings are available there. Or you can use a web-based app running on your computer or your iOS device, and this gives you access to all of the settings, as well as a 48 by 48 channel digital mixer. Using its internal digital mixer, of course, there are no latency issues when you're recording with the 624, but even on its own, the 624 can achieve latencies as low as 1.4 milliseconds. Let's take a quick tour of the 624, then we'll check out the web-based control app and mixer, and finally we'll look at the included audio desk recording software. Beginning on my far right, we have a headphone output and an associated level control. Now that level control accesses both the main speaker outputs as well as the headphone. So if we turn this, we'll see we're controlling the main outputs. If we press, we're controlling the headphones. Press again to return to the main speaker outputs. Next up, we have two 1/4-inch connections for DI input of instruments. The controls for setting the level for those DI inputs are above. Beside the direct inputs, we have our controls for our mic level inputs. So we have a pad control for each of the inputs, and we also have 48-volt phantom power. Turning the knob adjusts the gain for the microphone level input. Pressing any of the knobs allows us to access the settings for the 624. We can scroll through those. We can choose, in which case we can access even more settings. And this control moves us back through the menu. When we're not accessing settings, the screen displays our meters. The rest of the connectivity is on the back panel. We have two microphone level inputs. We have 4 line level inputs, our main outputs, 4 line level outputs, and then our computer and network connectivity. A Thunderbolt port, a USB 3.0 port, which is also compatible with USB 2.0, and then an AVB network port. Finally, we have 2 optical ports, one for input, one for output, and those can be switched between stereo toslink and 8-channel ADAT. At lower sample rates, we get 8 channels of input and output on those ports. At higher sample rates, 4 channels of input and output. The 624 is a compact and lightweight audio interface. It's about half-rack size, and in fact, it comes with hardware so you can join it with another half-rack audio interface and mount those into a rack. But on its own, the 624 is very portable. Toss it into a gig bag or a computer laptop bag. You can take it to the gig, make on-site recordings, record your rehearsals, or take it wherever you need to be capturing audio. With the associated web browser app, we can access all of the settings and all of the controls for the 624 right from your computer as you're working, so you don't even have to have access to the hardware. You could put the interface in a rack or locate it on stage, run an AVB network cable out to it or a long Thunderbolt cable, and you can access all the controls right from your computer. When you launch the web browser app, you're presented with a quick setup screen, and you can choose how you're planning to use your 624. As a standard audio interface, a standalone mixer, an interface plus a mixer, for live recording with monitor mixing, as an AVB expansion audio interface, or as an optical converter. Once you've made your selection, click OK, and you'll be presented with all the control options for the interface. To begin, we have our device setup options. This is where we can set our sample rate, where our clock source is coming from. We can see the clock status. In this case, we're locked, and we're using internal setting at 48K. We can also see our input settings, so we can control our phantom power selection, on and off, pad on and off. We can also flip the phase, invert the polarity on our 2 mic inputs. Our guitar DI inputs also allow us to invert the phase, and we can access the trim here. Our 4 analog inputs also have trim control for managing levels. Scrolling down gives us our output settings, headphone level, main output level, and our 4 analog output levels. And if we're working on an AVB network, we can access some of those controls here as well. Those are largely set it and forget it settings, so once you've made those settings, you can move to the other screens. For example, we have a routing screen, and this allows us to set where our inputs, here across the top, are feeding our outputs. So we can see our AVB streams. We can look at our ADAT inputs and outputs. When your routing is set, we can move to our mixing screen. The mixer is set up so you can show or hide only the things that you need to see for your session. So for example here, really all we're seeing are solo, mute controls, channel levels, and pan controls. These are accessing the digital mixer that's inside the 624. This allows us to do latency-free mixing as well as add effects without putting any strain on the processor inside your computer. Now we can access all of the other different features of the mixer here on the left-hand panel. We can see the legend, which clears our solo, for example, and our input meters. We can turn that off. We have a high-pass filter on each channel. If we activate that, we can set the frequency. We can also store presets for virtually every setting inside this mixer, as well as overall master settings. If we hide those, we can show the gate that's on each of the channels, and we have control over attack, threshold, and release. There's an EQ on each channel. We have 4 bands, and those can be activated independently. The high and the low band can be switched from shelf to bell. We can also look at the EQ on a graph. So as we make changes, we can see those represented visually. If we click, it becomes a large display, and we can now make changes right on the graph itself. If we scroll down, we can access the compressor on each channel, and once again we have a graph. And we have complete control over all the compressor settings. If we turn that off, we have aux sends available on each channel. There are up to 14 mono sends or 7 stereo sends available per channel. We can also display group assignments. We can choose which inputs are available, so we can set the mixer size so it fits our screen. So we could, for example, turn off our ADAT settings if we're not using ADAT I/O. And the same for our outputs. We can look at our master bus outputs in this section as well as the main outputs. So we have our groups here, our reverb, auxes. So you can really configure the mixer to see exactly what you need for whatever you happen to be doing. Our final screen allows us to create aux mixes that we can send to our different buses. So if we select that, up here at the top, we can see our auxes. So if we set up a mix for aux 1 and 2, we can switch to aux 3 and 4 and have a completely separate mix. 5 and 6 can have its own mix, and we can easily move among those. We can also turn off or display whichever of the inputs we want to look at, and we can look at our groups as well. Finally, we have our reverb send here at the bottom. Using the web app is a very convenient way to access all of the settings and all the controls for the mixer inside the 624. It's a great way to work. It's very fast and it's very convenient. In addition to the free web-based mixer app, the 624 also includes MOTU's Audio Desk 4. This is a recording software app that allows you to capture audio, do complete mixes, apply plugins. It's basically a DAW that comes free along with the interface. Audio Desk 4 supports MOTU's proprietary plugin format as well as audio units and VST, so you can access all of your plugins from right here inside. We can load up different pre-configured setups as well as save our own presets so we can get right to work. So here we'll load one with 16 mono tracks and 16 stereo tracks. And we're presented with a complete mixer as well as our recording screen. So we've got the mixing board, we've got the edit window. From the mixing board we can access all of our plugins. So those are available here. We can also set up our routing for our different sends, buses. We have solo, mute, record, and input controls. It's a full-featured DAW. Once your audio is recorded, we can also edit that, of course. One of the great features of Autodesk is that its files are fully compatible with DP9 from MOTU. That's their flagship DAW. So you can start a project in Autodesk, which is very convenient to work in for audio recording, move it over to DP9 to finish it. One of the questions that's come up is the difference between the Ultralight Mark IV and the 624. They're a similar format, but there are actually some differences between them. The 624 is a hybrid interface. It supports Thunderbolt, USB 3.0, and AVB networking. The Ultralight Mark IV, on the other hand, is a USB interface, so it connects via USB 2.0. So if connectivity is an issue, you're definitely going to want to look at the 624. As far as I/O, there's a bit more I/O with the Ultralight Mark IV. You have a couple more inputs and a couple more outputs, but they're pretty close. We have 16 by 16 here and something like 18 by 22 in the Ultralight Mark IV. However, the Ultralight Mark IV does include MIDI I/O as well. In either case, you're getting a compact form factor and great audio quality, so it really depends on which interface is going to fit your needs. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the MOTU 624. It's an awesome audio interface for portable applications, and it also makes a great centerpiece for your studio, whether you're working at home, in a project studio, or a commercial studio. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.